So, trailer loading is a super high stress behavior for horses to learn because we're asking them to get into a confined, dark, rattly box that is pretty much guaranteed to take them somewhere that is stressful because they're going to be going away from their friends and their home. So, we first of all need to appreciate the gravity of what type of ask this is for horses, and then be really careful how we go about teaching them to load in the trailer because if you use force and subscribe to the whole make it harder to not be in the trailer mentality where you make work outside the trailer super difficult and then let them quote unquote rest in the trailer. All that is really teaching them is that the act of loading in the trailer is exceptionally high stress and absolutely no fun. And it doesn't bode well for teaching them to stand properly and safely in the trailer. And if you want to lower the risk of your horse having an accident in the trailer where they hurt themselves, you don't want them to be that nervous. So using positive reinforcement will create way more consistency in the training. So basically what I do is it depends on how stressed the horse is. If they are really stressed at the trailer far away, I'm going to start from far away and get them comfortable approaching the trailer from far away and not just expect them to stand right at the trailer. If they're curious and they approach the trailer, then I'll start with getting them to walk towards the trailer or lean towards the trailer if they're at the foot of the trailer, and then eventually shape that to putting a foot up depending on the horse. As you can see here, Gala is quite bold, so the number of shaping steps that I need are less for her because she is more willing to just step in and then stand in here. For a horse who's more nervous, I would encourage them to step out and unload themselves so that they don't get overwhelmed. But since she's choosing to be in here and she's not too worried, I'm just going to keep feeding her to build duration and just get her comfortable standing in the trailer. But for some horses, you might need to back them out and ask them to leave after they put up 2 feet or so. So that they don't get too stressed, because sometimes they'll put themselves in or they'll stand there for longer and then they'll be desperate to get out and they'll go running out, which can be unsafe. The reason why I like doing trailer loading at Liberty so much is it takes away the temptation to pull on the lead rope. A lot of horses who are afraid of the trailer, when you pull on the lead rope and try to ask them to come in by applying pressure, it just increases their stress response and makes them more likely to react. And they also have a tendency to raise their head and potentially hit it on the ceiling of the trailer. So if you take away that pressure, if there's somewhere safe that you can work on the trailer without putting a halter and lead on them, I highly recommend it. If you don't have that, then I recommend using a long lead rope and just reinforcing them for coming forward of their own accord. You can use a target stick or you can just simply wait for them to come up to the trailer and approach, and then reward them for every tiny little step they take, or if they're really nervous, literally even just leaning forward towards the trailer. And again, you got to start off where their comfort zone is. If your horse cannot handle being near the trailer at the distance of 100 meters, you're not going to need to ask them to go right up to the trailer right away, because you need to get them comfortable at 100 meters first. So you very much have to base it off of the individual horse's comfort zone and make sure that you're not pushing them too hard and using what other horses' behavior is like as your guideline for how quickly you move. You have to gauge it on your horse's behavior and make sure that you're not putting them over threshold by asking too much. So an important note about my Mustangs is that the only times they've ever loaded in the trailer, they've been chute loaded, and it has been in incredibly high stress situations. So for example, when they were first rounded up, they were loaded in a trailer. Anytime they were moved from corral to corral, a different corral location, I should say, they were put in a trailer, again, forcibly chute loaded, chased in with a flag. And then when I brought them to Canada, they were loaded in a trailer through a chute, chased on with a flag, and then they proceeded to go on a 14-hour trip. So it's been a very unpleasant, stressful experience for them, so I need to be patient. I'm just standing here, and I should have rewarded Mesa for that step forward that she took with her hind end, because then she wouldn't have lost interest and left like that. So that's something that I should have done to try to keep her interest, but I missed it. So that was a mistake on my part, but she's going to come back here, and I'm just going to wait. And this is why I like doing it at Liberty so much, because there's no pressure on her to participate. She gets to choose what her level of participation is, because she's not being asked to be here in a halter. It's all completely on her. And what I also like with Gala is that I'm practicing just having her build duration in here by throwing food on the floor for her to eat. And then I should have rewarded her. Okay, good, I did. Rewarded her for the approach, and then basically I just kind of wait here and wait to pique her curiosity and just kind of have her lean forward. I should have rewarded her more there in the beginning. I could have given her more, because now this is kind of going to be a source of frustration for her, so I need to reward her more often. I'm not doing a frequent enough reinforcement schedule. I should be doing more often because then she's less likely to leave and get frustrated. But she took a step forward there. I should have clicked and rewarded there. That's something that I missed as well. My timing in the beginning of this is honestly not very good. I should have rewarded her before, because if I had, she wouldn't have walked away like that. It's because I'm not doing a frequent enough reinforcement schedule. So I need to up my reinforcement schedule to keep her interest. Otherwise, the level of demand that I'm asking for isn't being paid accordingly. And for her, this is a difficult ask, so I need to reinforce more frequently. And the nice thing about positive reinforcement is that in the beginning, when you're training behaviors like this, you reinforce very, very often, but you don't need to maintain that same reinforcement schedule forever. It's just the beginning when you're teaching them a new behavior where it's very scary and where they need more incentive to approach. So I should click and reward Juniper there for approaching the trailer. And again, no pressure. I'm going to just stand back here, because if I stand a little further back, it encourages them to come in. They spooked a little bit, and as you can see, Gala was a little bit concerned about that as well. So you'll see how easily Gala loads. She's very food motivated. Her harder part was getting off the trailer. I don't know if I have too much footage of that, but she loads very easily. She's a bit nervous when she's on, but she's not so nervous that I should be unloading her, because she unloads like when she needs to get out on herself. She's not coming out frantically. She kind of takes her time. She's not really sure how to get down off the step down that easily, so she needs more practice with that so she doesn't take as long to step down, but she's not frantic. If she were the type of horse that's spinning out and running, I would try to ask her to leave a little sooner, but it's kind of a happy medium, because if you pushing on them, their chest, and asking them to back out is going to cause stress. You might as well just let them kind of figure it out on their own, so long as you're out of the way. So Mesa approached, so I'm going to reward her for the approach. And then I've put food on the floor for Gala to eat. And I'm going to keep rewarding her for like any little step forward she takes, because what I'm basically trying to shape is her desire to put her foot onto the trailer. My trailer has a quite big step up. Further along in this video on a different day, my friend came up with the idea to back it up to a dirt mound to lower the step, which worked really nicely. But right now you can see how high it is. So the level of difficulty for them to load is quite a bit higher, because they have to step up so high. And so I need to reinforce more frequently. She leaned towards me at that point, so then I'm going to reinforce that as well. But the demand of like asking them to come onto this trailer is a lot greater, simply because of how high the step is for them, especially since they're ponies. Something Mesa is really good at is self-regulating. She'll take herself away when she's struggling or like having a hard time, and then she comes back when she's ready. So that's really good, because she kind of advocates for herself in that way. And that's also what's so great about doing stuff at Liberty. And yeah, so I'm going to reward her for stepping forward, and then I'm just going to try to back Gala off, because she's trying to take treats out of the same hand, and it's a little busy. I tried to get Gala to unload, and she didn't want to. She just kept like turning around and going and eating more snacky snacks, and I don't want to like chase her out of the trailer, because she's really enjoying being in there at this point, to the point where she doesn't really want to move, and she's quiet enough that I'm not really worried about her like mowing me down by frantically trying to unload. If she was like that, then I would need to be quite careful about how I went about things. So now what I'm doing is just trying to encourage and coax Mesa forward to put a foot onto the trailer. And when she does that, I'm going to give big rewards, and then I'm going to keep rewarding her for the duration that she builds. And if she only has 2 feet up, I'm going to allow her to kind of figure out when to put her feet down, rather than asking her to come down, because that might induce more stress if I'm coming towards her and pushing on her chest. So right now, all we're doing is building duration. I'm feeding Gala for building duration in the trailer, and I'm waiting for Mesa to kind of make the move to step closer. And honestly, this is all about patience. Like, you're better off doing a really short session and having it be highly successful than pushing it too long and making your horse end with a negative association with the trailer. Ideally, you want to end your sessions at a point where they're so thrilled about being in the trailer that they're going to be like, oh, darn, I wanted that to keep going, because then the next session you have is going to be that much more exciting. So you want to keep it pleasant, and you want to keep them super interested. If you find that they're leaving a lot and they're leaving for longer periods of time and not coming back, then that's a sign that you either need to up your reinforcement schedule, or that they might be kind of tapping out of the training. Mesa doesn't love the sound of like Gala moving around on here, so the fact that Gala's in here with me is also kind of trying her patience. So you can see she takes herself away, but she's going to come back. And we'll see if Gala hops out or not, because she kept looking like she wanted to, and then she just put herself right back in. she's a silly girl. So, yeah, see what I mean? She comes right back in. Gala being in there with me kind of complicates this process a little bit, but it's still good. What I've also done is I've thrown some food down on like the end of the trailer so that they can eat stuff off of the ground if they want to. And then I'm also rewarding the duration because them standing at the edge of the trailer, like this is still towards what I want. Like, see, Juniper picked up her leg a little bit there, like she was going to put it on there. So I'm going to click and reward that right away. But basically, like any little step that's an inkling towards the act of getting into the trailer is what you want to reinforce in the very beginning stages of doing this. So like them taking a step forward, even if it's just with their hind end, or them starting to put a leg up, and even if they don't put it onto the trailer, that's all stuff that you should reinforce because you're going to shape that towards them actually physically putting their feet into the trailer, and that will take time, especially if they're nervous. So you need to reinforce all these little steps to get them to go in because you're essentially incentivizing them to want to go in into a dark little box that they otherwise have very, very little incentive to want to go in. So you need to provide them with incentive to want to enter the trailer. And in the beginning, when they're the most nervous, you're going to need to be doing that the most. Otherwise, they're going to be like, it's not worth it. I'd rather go nibble at the weeds or go do something else. So any little step, any leaning towards them and just kind of helping them continue to be interested by putting food on the ground is great because even though they're not in the trailer and they're not stepping on it yet, they're still building duration by the trailer, and it's creating an association where they're going to want to come near the trailer more often. So you can see Mesa starting to problem solve here and just thinking about how she's going to go about putting her front feet onto the trailer. I should have reinforced that a little sooner. Like, I think I missed when she first put her step on. I was late, which is my bad. I should have definitely reinforced that because she's stepping up and towards. So I'm going to reinforce that again because she's starting to lift her front leg. And then we're just going to kind of let her kind of figure out this on her own because, like, once she figures out, like, the process of putting her feet up, she's not going to have a hard time. It's just the initial kind of getting the bravery to stand up, especially since my step is so large. It's way more of a commitment than if it were a ramp load or if it was a smaller step. So she's decided to make the commitment, so I'm going to feed her. And then we're just going to kind of let her look. She's a little nervous. You can see by how she's looking around. So I'm just going to keep feeding her and letting her build duration and letting her sniff around and kind of check things out. Because the other hard part about the trailer is that once they get partway in, it blocks their vision of stuff that's going on the outside. So if there's any noises outside the trailer, she can't really see what's going on very well, and it's more likely to be nerve-wracking and fear-inducing for her. So letting her kind of start to get used to that is really important. Like, see, Gala moved and she got a little scared and then she goes trotting away, but she comes back quite fast, which is really good. But she needed to take herself out of that situation because she was nervous. And then see how quickly she comes back. She's back again. I was talking to Gala, so I missed reinforcing that right away. I should have reinforced her right there. I'm not really paying attention, so that's my boo-boo. I should have reinforced about 2 to 3 times in that time. But I'm busy talking to my mom and completely ignoring how hard Mesa is trying. And I could have reinforced that, and then it would have also sped up the process of her wanting to come into the trailer. But my reinforcement schedule was not good there. So if you're in this type of situation, reinforce more frequently than I did just there, because you want to incentivize them to want to come in. And if you don't reinforce frequently enough, it's going to kind of slow down the process of getting them super comfortable with loading. I'm not focusing on Juniper as much in this session because Mesa was kind of the most curious, and they didn't really want to load at the same time like this because there wasn't as much space. So Juniper, when she does come close, I'll reinforce her, but I don't actually really mind her just standing there and being interested because she's still like spectating and it's still getting her used to things, which is really great. So I don't really mind that. I can focus on her at another point, and what I would probably do in a different situation is unload Gala so that I can focus on her. And so, yeah, we're just kind of focusing on Mesa again and seeing if she'll put her feet up. And then she's really thinking, like, you can kind of see her brain working. She's moving her hind end around, and then she's going up. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to reinforce that. Let her look around again, check things out, and just continue feeding her to build duration, because now that her feet are in, I'm not going to immediately just expect her to put the hinds in as well. I'm just going to keep feeding her for being in here, and encouraging her to step forward and helping her build duration by making it really pleasant, because then what she's learning is that anytime she brings her feet into the trailer, she's getting fed basically nonstop, which makes it a more pleasant place to be. And it also, like, chewing is a relaxing behavior for horses, so that's really nice for her as well. It's helping her kind of self self-soothe by continuing to let her eat. And basically what I want to do is keep her chewing all the time while she's in there. And then when or if she does make the choice to put her hind legs in, I'm going to obviously click and reinforce that. And I'm going to expect that like once she gets all the way in the first time that she's going to be nervous unloading, because the other part of this is that once they're in, the trailer makes different sounds. It rocks, it moves, it sounds like they're on a bridge. The ground doesn't feel the steadiest. So it can be nerve-wracking because of that. So that's why you want to do all these little steps and slowly build the duration, because even though she's not all the way in at this point, it's helping her get more comfortable in the trailer, but in a safer way, because when she has that hind end on the outside, she feels like she can exit easier, which she can. So that's a good thing for her because it's giving her more autonomy over like what she's doing, and it helps her create safety for herself by having it be a slower introduction. And what I'm doing is just feeding her essentially nonstop. Like once she's finished chewing, I'm feeding her again. I'm letting her look around and kind of process what's going on around her so that she can see. And then we're just gradually building the duration without having the expectation that she needs to immediately put her hind legs in, because I'm not in a rush. If I tried to rush her forward, I'm more likely to create a fear response where she's more nervous, and I don't want that. I want her to kind of take her time and figure it out on her own in a low stress, low pressure way, and just teach her that like, hey, being inside the trailer, even when you're only halfway in, is a great place to be. You're going to get fed in here. It's super fun. She's kind of surveilling a lot, so you can see that she's not super like comfy with this because she's looking around a lot and she's nervous. Whenever there's sounds outside, she has a tendency to unload herself because she gets nervous. Like, see, I moved the divider and it scared her, so she unloads quickly. Now we're going to try to get Gala out. She did not want to come out. She just goes back in the trailer and decides to just go back eating, which I mean, I can't really complain because she built a lot of duration, and then she stood in the divider really, really well, despite the fact that she's not hauled very often. So, you know, there's worse problems to have. It would be convenient if she did get off when I asked, because it would make it easier for me to work with the other horses. But honestly, there's worse problems to have, and I'm not really going to complain. So now I'm just kind of prepping to start working on the dividers with Gala since she's built so much duration. And then we're going to start kind of moving them around. This is like only something you start doing once they're super comfortable just standing in the trailer with the dividers open, because you don't want to confine them more and trap them and start moving stuff around when they're already uncomfortable. So Juniper approach, so I'm just going to feed her. But yeah, don't start on the dividers until your horse is reliably just standing in the trailer and has built duration doing that without it being super fear inducing. Otherwise, the act of closing the divider can be a trigger that causes them to go over threshold due to trigger stacking. So really make sure that they are ready for that and that you have built duration. Like, I'm kind of just holding the divider and moving it around so that she can hear it a little bit. And then the way I start with the divider is kind of just by closing it a little bit, having them feel it on their sides, and then gradually getting them used to being kind of in that little confinement slot, because that's adding another step that is really fear inducing for them, because it just makes them feel more trapped. So you got to take it slow because you don't want it to be really high stress for them. Juniper took another step, so I'm going to reinforce and click that, and then just kind of encourage her to step forward. Juniper had a harder time than Mesa figuring out how to put her feet on the trailer, which you'll see in the next day training session. So for her, like, at reinforcing her for moving forward and showing interest in just trying, and then gradually shaping that to her starting to lift her leg up, was really important because she didn't really get it. It took her a little while to really figure out, like, oh, I'm supposed to put my feet all the way up on this really high step. So it took some time. And with Gala, she doesn't really mind the divider, so I'm just practicing like opening and closing it so she can hear the sound of the hinges. And then also, like, I lightly touched her bum with the side of the divider before, just to get her comfy with it. And now she's turning around, so we're not going to close it when she's like that, but it's good practice. And honestly, the beginning stages of trailer loading training are super boring and you have to be really patient, but the payoff is so great. So like, take your time in the beginning stages to get a really confident horse, especially if you have no reason to rush into loading them, because it will pay off greatly in the future. So now Mesa's loading again, and then I'm going to feed her. And what you'll notice is, like, as time goes on in this session, she just readily puts her feet up and starts loading quite comfortably. She just needed to get her feet up and start practicing like putting her her feet on the trailer several times before she got super comfortable with it. But once she figured it out, she was quite willing to do that. So I'm just going to keep reinforcing her for that and trying to encourage her to kind of come forward with the hind end. Since the step is so big, bringing that hind end up is kind of difficult for them. So it does take some time, and I just want her to figure it out on her own without feeling too pressured, because it is hard. Like, she has to figure out where to place her hind end and how high to bring it up so that she gets it in, doesn't catch it on the side of the mat. And that's not something I want to rush. So I'm just going to let her take her time, and I'm going to keep reinforcing her for standing in here, and then just kind of gradually build duration in between feeding. I'm feeding quite often, but I'm also, like, as she gets more comfortable, I'm waiting a little bit longer before I feed her so that she's not getting fed like every single second. Gala's turning around here, and you'll see that she didn't actually move despite the sound of Gala's feet. Prior to this, she moved way quicker, and like, notice how she got off. She didn't go running off that time, so she's getting way more comfortable, because the last 2 times she unloaded, she went flying off, which is an indicator of her discomfort. She didn't go flying off that time, so she was way more comfortable. My mom stopped filming at this part, but Mesa just climbed all the way in, and then I also have Gala in the divider. I practiced closing it a few times, and then I ran the rope through and then tied her up, and I'm just feeding her intermittently, and she also has a hay net there. When you're regularly trailering your horses, I would not recommend ever trailering them without hay. I don't really think there's a reason to. If you want to help avoid an ulcer episode, always keep hay in front of them. When I plan in advance, I like to try to get like alfalfa or an alfalfa mix so that it's something a little bit more exciting than their regular hay. And alfalfa is also really high in calcium, so it coats their stomach and it can help prevent ulcers. But there's not really any reason to trailer them without hay. It'll help them self-soothe. It gives them something to do when they're in an otherwise unpleasant situation, and it will help you avoid an ulcer episode. So now that Mesa is in here, I'm just continuing to feed her to reinforce her for being in here. She has Gala there for more moral support, and I'm standing by the window of Gala's divider to keep feeding her for building duration. I also have the escape door, which is at Gala's head, ajar so that I can push it open. It doesn't look open to Gala, but for me, if I need to get out of there quickly, I can dive out that escape door, which makes this a lot safer because it's not like I'm being in a completely enclosed box with potentially nervous horses. The one downfall about trailer loading is that the faster they move around in the trailer, the more noise it makes, and then the noise itself can just be triggers stacking, especially if there's noises going on outside. So anytime Mesa hears something kind of happening outside, she gets nervous, or if like Gala moves her paws, she gets nervous. So she bumped her bum on the edge of the divider there, so she needed to get out quickly, and she left. But she comes back really quickly and recovers really quickly, which shows that like it's mostly just she needs to get out of there to regulate, and then she comes right back. She's like, okay, this is not so bad. And you'll notice that she starts putting her hind end up quicker and quicker. Like, she's thinking about it there. I should have clicked and reinforced those attempts prior to her getting all the way in, just to like really kind of reiterate that is a good try. So I was a little bit late on that, but then I reinforced her once she got in. And now like I don't mind her standing here, because when I do trailer the Mustangs the first time, they're going to be trailered in a loose box. I'm not going to put the dividers on, so there's no reason to practice those. Plus, even if I was going to do that, since she's not super comfortable just standing here, there's no way I would touch the dividers at this point. I want her to be super comfortable. I want her to get used to standing right up where she would be tied when she's trailering with the dividers closed. And I want her to be building lots of duration, super comfortable with the sounds of the trailer, and not trying to exit quickly. And until then, there is absolutely no benefit to me to closing the divider, because all that puts me at risk of is creating a wreck if she really needs to escape, or ruining her association with the trailer and damaging the like relaxation and trust that I'm building by having her stand in here. I'm quite happy with the duration that she's building, and what I also like is that she stays in here. You'll notice like I go out the escape door and then I come around the sides, so there's noises. I do talk to her when I come around the sides so that she can kind of gauge whereabouts I am, but before anytime she heard a noise outside the trailer, she'd exit very quickly, which was like not great. But this time you'll see me come along the side and she doesn't get as nervous. I'm talking to her so she knows where I am, and then I'm coming around the side. And initially, like when she was first getting in, she for sure would have left from this because I move the door and it creates movement in her periphery, and she also can hear me making sounds around there. So you can see she looks up. She's not super thrilled about it. She's a little cautious, and she just continues eating. So that's a really nice, good reaction. I threw food on the floor so that she can continue eating herself. But I really liked that reaction because it's showing that she's starting to get more comfortable being in there. And what I also really like is just that June spectates the entire time. She stays really nice and close, which makes it easier. So I'm just trying to get her to see the food that I've dropped on the floor there so that I can encourage her to check it out. She's more interested in what I'm doing. Mesa's kind of just checking out what I'm doing as well, but she's building really nice duration. And I'm also really proud of Gala for how well she's standing in the divider because she's also building duration there. I left a bunch of treats inside her hay bag that she can kind of dig through and eat so she can kind of build her own duration and not have it be a situation where she's getting super low value food. Okay, so this is day 2. We have the panels open. Gala just doesn't realize how to get in. And you'll see how quickly Mesa puts her feet up on day 2. It's basically right away that she does it because she has built confidence in her time thinking about it. There's 2 days between the sessions, but look at how much quicker she gets in now. Like she's pretty ready to get in, and then she gets all the way in really nice and quick. So that's fantastic. So she has huge improvement from session 1 to the very beginning of session 2, which is really, really nice. Like she took absolutely no time to get in, and she's in here all by herself. Gala's not even in here. So this was her first time coming in all by herself, because I think every time she came in prior, Gala was in the trailer because she wouldn't get out. So she did have a friend, which would help her bring confidence. So she comes in, she approaches me. I'm going to keep feeding her anytime she takes a step forward. Her friends are eating the food off of the edge of the trailer, which is great because it's reinforcing them for approaching the trailer without me having to do it, which is awesome. So huge, huge improvement. This is Juniper trying to figure out how to put her feet up. So she starts off by like pawing at the edge of it. And anytime she lifts her leg and puts it on there, even though she's not building duration, I'm going to click and reward that because it's a step in the right direction, literally. So I don't want her to get frustrated and like not be sure what to do. So anytime she lifts up her leg, I'm going to start reinforcing that. And then I'm gradually going to shape that towards her, like actually physically putting her foot down, because she's just trying to figure out what to do. She's trying to figure out in her brain, like how to go about getting into the trailer, and she's trying really hard. So in order to help her learn what to do, I'm going to reinforce those attempts because she's doing a great job. And she had a harder time figuring out what to do with her feet initially. I could have reinforced both those attempts, and it probably would have been a better idea right now when we're trying to just like build her keenness towards doing that. So I missed those and I waited a little too long, and then she's going back up and I'm going to reinforce that. So when she lifts her leg like that, it's an attempt to do the right thing. It's an attempt to get in, and it's an attempt to try to load herself. So I'm going to reinforce that. And Mesa's just loading herself again. So I'm going to feed her and tell her she's a good girl. And then she's kind of unloading herself. She doesn't love the fact that Juniper's right there, I don't think. And also there's people wandering around outside, so she's a little nervous of that. What I really like about June is like how hard she tries. Like she keeps trying to put her leg up and figure it out, and I think it's awesome. Like she's just trying so hard, and it's freaking adorable. Super proud of her. So I'm just gonna keep encouraging her to do it, because eventually she's gonna start to figure out to leave her foot on there. And the more she actually touches it with her foot and I reinforce her for that, then I can start to ask more once she's consistently doing that, and ask her to like actually place her foot down and start to build duration. And you'll see what she starts doing. She starts to think that I'm asking her to paw at the trailer, so that's what she's doing initially. And then once she's consistently kind of putting one foot on there, then I kind of pause and I wait for her to like stop pawing and stop moving the foot and just leave the toe on there for a little bit, like initially just a few seconds, and I click and reward that because I want her to learn that I don't want her to paw, I just want the foot to stay on there. Also, she's probably pawing partly to kind of gauge what the footing is like, because it's a little confusing. feels a little wobbly, a little unsafe. So she's not quite sure. So she's using the pawing as a means of kind of gauging what she's up against. And I'm just gradually going to shape that to her leaving the foot on. So reinforce there. I did click there, but I took the audio out so that you guys can hear me better. When she's pawing and not leaving the toe on, I'm going to try to make her build duration a little bit more and not reinforce right away, just so that I can try to shape it towards her actually putting the foot up. And then as she starts to get it, she's going to be able to figure it out more and leave her foot on for longer. So I'm clicking like every time she kind of leaves it up for that like little pause moment, because I want her to learn like, hey, like this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to put my foot straight down. That was really good. She held it there for longer, so we're going to reward that. And even though she's not putting her foot down flat, it's still correct. Like you can see that she's starting to figure it out. She's doing less and less pawing. Also, don't worry about that cord behind them. It's not actually plugged in, but I didn't want to move it because it was there, like it was underneath the trailer initially, and then it moved. They won't get tangled in it. It's not plugged into anything, but I didn't want to take it out like a snake while they're standing right by the trailer. Anyways, so she puts her foot down. We're gonna click and reward that. I love how she actually left her foot up the entire time that time. And again, she's not putting the hoof flat, which is like not quite correct, but I don't really care because that will be shaped. I just need her to start putting her feet on because she was having a difficult time learning how to do that initially. So I don't want her to get frustrated by increasing my demands too much, because she's really trying super hard, and you can see how hard she is trying. Like she's trying so hard to figure this out and do the right thing. She's very engaged in training and is like super, super smart. So anytime she reaches forward and kind of stretches out her leg bigger like that, I need to click and reinforce. That was a little late what I did. I should have done it earlier. She left her toe on there though. I'm going to click and reward that because that was very good. Okay, so my friend had the idea to back it up to this mound, which was a great idea because it makes it way less of a step up for them and way easier. So Gala, of course, is already in there. We did have to catch her at some point to get her to come out because she literally wouldn't leave. So we had to halter her and go put her in Gala jail in the panels because she just kept going in and we needed more space. Like, see, she just keeps getting in and out. And Mesa's also in there. So that's really great. Juniper scares them because she goes running and then everyone leaves and they're just being silly girls. But Gala gets put in Gala jail, and then now we have Juniper more willingly putting her feet on flat because she's kind of figuring it out. She's here all by herself, and the other girls are up in front of the trailer where she can't see them. So she leaves to kind of go check out what they're doing. But then she comes right back. I call for her. She turns around and she starts to come right back, which is excellent. Really great decision making on her part. And like, this is like a quite large field. Like, she has like 5 total acres that she could be on. So she doesn't need to be right here with the trailer. So it's all completely her choice. And I'm really proud of her. So I could have clicked and rewarded her for touching it there, especially since she's starting to lose a little bit of interest because the trailer has moved. So it's a slightly different context. But that's really great. So I'm going to click and reward that for her coming in because that's really smart. And again, like, I'm not going to get greedy and be like, oh, you need to put your hind legs in right away. Like, no, she's putting her fronts in and it's going to be what I shape. I'm going to reward her for that and continue to encourage her to keep doing it because I just want her to eventually make the decision to come all the way in. And what I predict is that by the 3rd session that we do, there's going to be a big improvement because she's going to have time to think. So since she was pawing, I paused and I waited for her to kind of stand still, and then I clicked and rewarded her because I don't want her to paw ideally. And now that she's put her feet in a bunch of times, I can kind of increase the expectation. And she just tries so hard. Like, look at her. So she's pawing a little bit. She's checking it out. She's got her nose right down there to check it out. And then I'm going to click and reward when she comes forward right there because I'm trying to shape away the pawing response. But we still want her to not be discouraged and to just keep making the decision to come in here, which you can see, like, she takes herself away, but then she turns around and comes back quite quickly, which is great. So really happy with that. And then she puts her foot in right away. She's doing a displacement behavior there by itching her leg. So she's nervous. I'm going to reward her for stepping in. But as you can see, she's starting to step in with her front feet a lot more confidently. And then she backed out much more relaxed at that point. which is really great, and didn't actually turn away. So now she comes right back. She's pawing again, checking out the footing, and I'm just going to pause and wait for her to make the decision to kind of place her feet in, and then I'm going to click and reward her for doing so, because what I'm reiterating now is like, okay, the correct thing to do is just place your feet flat, don't paw. And I'm shaping away the pawing response initially now that she's repeatedly putting her feet up on the trailer. It's showing her exactly what I want from her, and she's starting to understand it. So now I can increase my expectation. The flies are bothering her a little bit, so that's also something to factor in, because she might be a little more like less focused and just sensitive because the flies are bothering her. So now she comes all the way in. That's really good. I'm going to keep feeding her and continue feeding her the whole time she's in here, because that's excellent. I'm really, really happy with that. And then I like how she unloads here. It's quite quiet, and then she stops right there, and she's going to turn around and basically come right back right away. So really, really good response. I really like that. She's not coming like right into the trailer, but she didn't go far away. She's standing right there, which is excellent. So she's really curious of the trailer at this point, and that's something that I can work with quite easily, because she is super interested in coming back, and it shows that she's more comfortable. Like, she's not so afraid that she can't focus. So essentially what this is just a lot of repetition to help them build confidence and a positive association with the trailer, because the more she does this, the more she's realizing like, hey, I get fed when I'm in here. And even the ones that are spectating, like Mesa here, like they get used to the sounds of the trailer by standing outside like that, which is really good. And look at how she unloaded there. It was much quieter, and Mesa went running and she still didn't go running. So way better response, and she stands right close to the trailer, which I really, really like, and then comes right back. So really good. She's getting out less panicky and way more sensibly, and then comes right back and is quite interested, and she's now reliably starting to put her feet on the trailer and understanding what I want. And you can see that she's pawing less and less also. So she's still like not super keen on having the back end in. So this is also why it's like there's no way I would start moving dividers or anything like that, because she needs to build confidence putting the back end in on the trailer first before I start increasing my expectations. It's not going to be within my benefit to kind of demand from her too much. Now she's all the way in again. We're going to feed her. She kind of comes in and then she leaves right away after I feed her. That's okay. She's not going far, and you can see that she's unloading safer. So what I also like about this is that she's teaching herself how to unload safely. Like, she's being really relaxed, and she's not flying out. So she's also teaching herself how to unload and not panic and just leave the trailer. And since she's not trapped in here, it's also going to decrease the panic response when she eventually actually gets trailered, because she's getting used to the idea that she can just leave. And then we'll eventually build duration so she's not going to feel the need to leave so early. But it's teaching her how to get out safely and how to not panic. And she's not rattling the trailer as much. She's getting used to all the sounds, which is really, really great. So I'm super happy with her. It was a big improvement for her today, because she didn't really put her foot up at all the first time. Part of it, I think, was Mesa being in the way and having Mesa and Gala in the trailer at the same time. So she was a little discouraged from that. But the other part, I think, was just that she didn't really understand. So as you can see, she's getting out much calmer. And she's still very curious, which I really like. The flies were really a bother for her today, and she's also in heat. So she's a little not herself as much as she could be. But she's so good. Like, I'm really, really happy with how she handled things. And just like how keen she was to do these types of things.
Good job.
So we let Gala out of Gala prison, and the first thing she did was put herself into the trailer. And then Mesa follows her in. There's actually no one in there right now. There's just all the dropped food on the ground. And I was just like super impressed with the fact that they were just willing to go in. And again, like, I'm not feeding them in there. They're technically not like being super reinforced, but they're building confidence on their own just by nibbling at the treats in there and kind of building their own duration. And they're in there side by side, so it's a little bit more squishy in there for them as well. But I was so happy with their choice to go in there. There's not really space for Juniper to go in, so the way Mesa got out then was excellent. She backed out really nice and quiet, so I also love to see that. She's way less nervous. really good decisions overall. And again, like this is kind of when they're breaking. We were gonna pull the trailer out, but then they started getting in it, so we couldn't move it. So I just gave them a chance to kind of check it out and play with it a little bit and kind of hang out before moving it. And then once they were kind of done with it, I decided to move the trailer. But this is also kind of a great way to let them check it out. Like I wouldn't leave your trailer unattended in case they rub their bums on it or try to jump the jack or something. But this is a great way to kind of just let them check things out. And it was a nice positive note to end on for them.